Oh, hello, great readers. I'm Belchan.
I'm Nimikung.
I'm Van Chan.
In this class, I'll read to all of you a part of Great Expectations.
S.
L.
Great Expectations. Charles Dickens. Chapter 10. The felicitous idea occurred to me a morning or two later when I woke. Of Biddy everything she knew. In pursuance of this luminous conception I mentioned to Deep when I went to Mr. Wopsle's great-aunt's at night. That I had a particular reason for wishing to get on in life. Her learning to me. Biddy, who was the most obliging of girls, immediately said she would, and indeed began to carry out her promise within 5 minutes. The educational scheme was established by Mr. Wopsle's great and may be resolved into the following synopsis. The pupils ate apples and put straws down one another's backs until Mr. Wopsle's great aunt collected her energies and made an indiscriminate tutter at them with a birch rod. After receiving the charge with every mark of derision, the pupils formed in line and buzzingly passed a ragged book from hand to hand. The book had an alphabet in it, some figures and tables, and a little spelling, that is to say. It had had once, as soon as this volume began to circulate, Mr. Wopsle's great aunt fell into a state of coma, arising either from sleep or a rheumatic paroxysm. The pupils then entered among themselves upon a competitive examination on the subject of boots, with the view of ascertaining who could tread the hardest upon his toes. Bibles shaped as if they had been unskilfully cut off the chump end of something. What? Speckled all over with emerald, and having various specimens of the insect world smashed between their leaves. Refractory students. When the fights were over, Biddy gave out the number of a page, and then we all read aloud what we called Joe, what we called it in a frightful chorus. Biddy leading with the high, shrill, monotonous voice, and none of us having the least notion of, or reverence for, what we were reading about. When this horrible din had lasted a certain time, it mechanically awoke Mr. Wopsle's great aunt, who staggered at a boy fortuitously, and pulled his ears. This was understood to terminate the course for the evening, and we emerged into there with shrieks of intellectual victory, with a slate or even with ink when there was any. Season. Also Mr. and no suffers. It appeared to me that it would take time to become uncommon. Under these circumstances, nevertheless, I resolved to try it. And that very evening Biddy entered on our special agreement by imparting some information from her little catalogue of prices under the head of moist sugar, and lending me to copy at home a large old English tea which she had imitated from the heading of some newspaper, and which I supposed, until she told me what it was, to be a design for a buckle. Of course there was a public house in the village, and of course Joe liked sometimes to smoke his pipe there. Jolly Bargeman, that evening, on my way from school, and bring him home at my peril. To the 3 Jolly Bargemen, therefore, I directed my steps. There was a bar at the Jolly Bargeman. The door, which seemed to me to be never paid off. They had been there ever since I could remember, and had grown more than I had. But there was a quantity of chuck about our country, and perhaps the people neglected no opportunity of turning it to account. It being Saturday night, I found the landlord looking rather grimly at these records. But as my business was with Joe and not with him, I merely wished him good evening, and passed into the common room at the end of the passage, where there was a bright large kitchen fire, and where Joe was smoking his pipe in company with Mr. Wopsle and a stranger. Joe greeted me as usual with "Hello, in, old chap," and the moment he said that, the stranger turned his head and looked at me. He was a secret-looking man whom I had never seen before. His head was all on one side, and one of his eyes was half shut up, as if he were taking aim at something with an invisible gun. He had a pipe in his mouth, and he took it out. And then, after slowly blowing all his smoke away and looking hard at me all the time, added, "So," I nodded, and then he nodded again, and made room on the settle beside him that I might sit down there. "Resort?" I said no. "Thank you, sir," and fell into the space Joe made for me on the opposite settle. The strange man, after glancing at Joe, and seeing that his attention was otherwise engaged, nodded to me again when I had taken my seat, and then rubbed his leg in a very odd way, as it struck me. "You were saying," said the strange man, turning to Joe. "Yes," I said it. "You know," said Joe. "What'll you drink?" "Whiskey." "You didn't mention your name." Joe mentioned it now, and the strange man called him by it. "What'll you drink?" "Whiskey." "Cordially?" "At my expense." "Well," said Joe, "to tell you the truth, habit." "No," returned the stranger, "but once and away, and on a Saturday night too." "Come, put a name to it." "Whiskey." "I wouldn't wish to be stiff company," said Joe. "Rum," repeated the stranger. "Rum," said Mr. Wopple. "3 rums," cried the stranger, calling to the landlord. "This other gentleman," observed Joe, by way of introducing Mr. Wopple, "is a gentleman that you would like to give it out." "Ah," said the stranger, quickly, and cocking his eye at me. "The lonely church, right out on the marshes." "That's it," said Joe. The stranger, with a comfortable kind of grunt over his pipe, put his legs up on the settle that he had to himself. He wore a flapping broad-brimmed traveller's hat, and under it a handkerchief tied over his head in the manner of a cap, so that he showed no hair. As he looked at the fire, I thought I saw a cunning expression, followed by a half-laugh, come into his face. "I am not acquainted with this country, gentlemen. Most marshes is solitary," said Joe. "No doubt. No doubt. Do you find any gypsies? Anne? Or tramps? Or vagrants of any sort? No, said Joe. None but a runaway convict now and then. And we don't find them. Easy. Well. Wister. What? With a majestic remembrance of old discomfiture. Assented. But not warmly. Seemed you had been out after such, asked the stranger. Once returned Joe. Not that we wanted to take them. You understand. We went out as lookers on. Ned. And Mr. Wobble. And Beb. Didn't us. Yes. The stranger looked at me again, still cocking his eye, as if he were expressly taking aim at me with his invisible gun, and said, He's a likely young parcel of bones, that. He'd said Joe. No, said Joe. It's a kind of family name what he gave himself when infant. Well, said Joe. Meditatively. Nothing. Of course. That it could be in any way necessary to consider about it. About everything that was discussed over a pipe, so will I know. Well, they've said the strange man. Well, said Joe, with the same appearance of profound cogitation. He isn't, no. Not to deceive you. What the blue blazes is he? Asked the stranger, which appeared to me to be an inquiry of unnecessary strength. Wister. Wops was stricken upon that, as one who knew all about relationships, having professional occasion to bear in mind what female relations a man might not marry, and expanded the ties between me and Joe. Having his hand in Wister. Wopsa finished off with a most terrifically snarling passage from Richard III. I did. And here I may remark that when Mr. Wopsa referred to me, it into my eyes, have put me through the same inflammatory process under similar circumstances. The subject of remark in our social family circle. But some large-handed person took some such ophthalmic steps to patronize me. All this while, the strange man looked at nobody but me. At last, and bring me down. But he said nothing after offering his blazes observation, until the glasses of rum and water were brought. And then he made a shot. And a most extraordinary shot it was. It was not a verbal remark, but a proceeding in dumb show, and was pointedly addressed to me. He stirred his rum and water pointedly at me, and he tasted his rum and water pointedly at me, and he stirred it and he tasted it, not with the spoon that was brought to him, but with a file. He did this so that nobody but I saw the file. Breast pocket. I knew it would be Joe's file, and I knew that he knew my convict. The moment I saw the instrument, I sat gazing at him, spellbound. But he now reclined on his settle, taking very little notice of me, and talking principally about turnips. In life afresh, in our village on Saturday nights, at other times, the half hour and the rum and water running out together, Joe got up to go, and took me by the hand, Stop half a moment. Mr. Gargery, said the strange man. I think I've got a bright new shilling somewhere in my pocket. And if I have. He looked it out from a handful of small change, folded it in some crumpled paper, and gave it to me. Yours is tea. Mind. I thanked him, staring at him far beyond the bounds of good manners, and holding tight to Joe. He gave Joe good night, and he gave Mr. Wops a good night who went out with us, and he gave me only a look with his I know. Not a look, for he shut it up. But what was maybe done with and I by hiding it. On the way home, if I had been in a humour for talking, the talk must have been all on my side, for Mr. Wopsle parted from us at the door of the Jolly Bargeman, and Joe went all the way home with his mouth wide open, to rinse the rum out with as much air as possible, and old acquaintance, and could think of nothing else. Get tuned. And Joe was encouraged by that unusual circumstance to tell her about the bright shilling. A bad un. I'll be bound, said Mice, Joe triumphantly, or you wouldn't have given it to the boy. I took it out of the paper, and it proved to be a good one. But what's this, said Mice, Joe, throwing down the shilling and catching up the paper. Of the warmest intimacy with all the cattle markets in the county. Joe caught up his hat again, and ran with them to the Jolly Bargeman to restore them to their owner. While he was gone, I sat down on my usual stool and looked vacantly at my sister, feeling pretty sure that the man would not be there. Presently, Joe came back, saying that the man was gone, but that you, Joe, had left word at the three Jolly Bargemen concerning the notes. Then my sister sealed them up in a piece of paper, a press in the state parlour. There they remained, a nightmare to me, many a night and day. I had sadly broken sleep when I got it, through thinking of the strange man taking him at me with his invisible gun, and of the utterly coarse and coming thing it was. I had previously forgotten. I was haunted by the foul. A dread possessed me that when I least expected it, the fowl would reappear. I coaxed myself to sleep by thinking of Miss Evesham's next Wednesday, and in my sleep I saw the fowl coming at me out of a door, without seeing who held it. I screamed myself awake. To be continued.